Hello and welcome to the video on creating create table statements from an ERD when we're dealing with associative entities. It's not that much more difficult than doing a one-to-many, but it's a little different. So I want to give you an example. So here again we've got our ERD. It's well constructed. We've got our primary keys defined in all of our entities. In this case, they are all identifying relationships because enrollment and offering are both weak entities. An offering record can't exist without a course record. An enrollment record can't exist without an offering and a student record. So that is doubly identifying, which makes enrollment and offering weak. So let's just start off. So in this case, we've got two weak entities, two strong entities, or regular entities. So we have to create the two regular entities first. I'm not going to go too crazy with the attributes because those you should already have pretty much straight. So we're going to create table student. It's going to have a student ID, which is an integer. Sorry, I'll tab. Make it clearer, which is not null. Again, getting into the student name should be broken down, right? We should have student first name, varchar 20, something like that. Again, we can't have a student if we don't know their name. That would be silly. And again, I really should have tabbed. Sorry. Alright, and then student last name. That's wow. Okay, so I don't know how to type. And again, that is also not null. You know, we may run into situations with students that, hey, we have to we have to be able to put in a student record not knowing a last name or not knowing a first name. There are students that are coming into universities now that only have one name, but let's not go there. All right, so student phone, whatever. So I'm just going to get into constraints. All right, so we're going to have a constraint, student PK. It's a primary key constraint on the student ID field. Okay, close the paren, semicolon, we're good to go. Now, we can't create enrollment or offering because we don't have the course. So let's create the course. So create table course. Again, I'm not going to go too crazy. We've got course ID, integer, no, integer. It's not null because that's going to be our primary key. Course name. Make that a varchar. One of these days I am going to learn how to type. Keep promising myself that. We'll see. Alright, that's not null. Again, course description, whatever. Let's get into the constraints. So we have a constraint. Course PK, which is a primary key constraint on the course ID column, close, semicolon, good to go. So we've got our two tables, two parent tables, right? So now, I still can't create enrollment because I still need offering, right? So I need offering first, so I'm gonna create table offering. We're gonna have an offering ID that is integer. It's gonna be the primary key, so should be not null. I'm gonna have an offering term, which is varchar 10 that's going to say, spring or fall or summer or whatever. Not null. And then the offering year, that can be an integer. Again, that should be not null. And again, that depends on your business rules. And in this case, we are also going to need a course FK, right? So that's going to be the name of the column. That's going to keep the foreign key from the course table, right? So that also has to be an integer because that's what it is in the course table. That should be not null because this is an identifying relationship. You can't have an offering unless it's associated with a course, right? So now we get into our constraints. I have a constraint. We'll call it offering PK. It's a primary key based on offering ID. Right? Now we've got a foreign key constraint because we have to constrain that the values that are put in the course FK field come from the course table. So that constraint is going to be offering course FK is a foreign key. This foreign key is going to be the course FK. In this example, I made the field name different. I could have called it course ID. In this case, I called it course FK just to remind me that this is actually the foreign key to the course table. Naming conventions can help you that way. And it references the course table's course ID field. Okay, and again, if I don't have the course table already created, I can't do that. Right? So now we're done with the offering table. So now we've got all the tables that we needed. Now we can finally set up the enrollment table. So we're going to create table enrollment. I am going to learn how to type, I swear. And in the enrollment, so we're going to have enrollment ID as an integer. Sorry, I did say I was going to keep tabbing. I keep spacing. So as a primary key, it should be not null. We're going to have grade, which again might be varchar 1 or maybe varchar 2, right? Because we're going to have A's and B minuses and stuff like that, so there might be a couple of characters involved. That we're going to have to leave null because obviously until the student takes the class, we're not going to know what grade they got. But we have two foreign keys. Remember, this is an associative entity, so this has to keep track of the two tables it's associated with. So we're going to have, let's make the first constraint enrollment PK. Did I spell it wrong again? I did. One finger is moving faster than the other. Enrollment PK, it's a primary key associated with enrollment ID. Ooh, sorry. Man, losing it. So first of all, we need student FK. Has to be the integer. Right, it has to be the same data type as it was in student, so student was integer. Again, this has to be not null. And then we have offering FK, which again also has to be an integer. And that should also be not null. Okay, so we've already set up our constraint for the primary key, maybe not in the right order, but we already have it there. So now we're going to make another constraint. And we're going to call this student FK. And this is a foreign key constraint associated with the student FK field, right, or attribute. So student FK, and that references the student table's student ID field. All right, and we have one more constraint on offering FK. Well, that's the name of the constraint. It's again going to be a foreign key on the offering FK attribute, or now it's a field, and that is going to reference the offering table's offering ID column. Okay, so one other way of doing this, right? So we've said at the beginning when we were creating these tables for the project that you can, I want you to create a primary key for everything. But as you know from associative entities, there's another way of doing this, and that is by making a compound primary key and eliminating the enrollment ID. So the way we would do that, just let me, oh, that's a nice, one of these days, right? So I'm going to take this create table statement. Now let me show you what it would look like. This statement altogether, that line, all right? And then the primary key would be the primary key, be the compound primary key of, oops, combination of student ID and offering ID. Okay, see how that is? So that was the other way. So there were two different ways of tackling associative entities. One is you create a system generated ID, which is enrollment ID, or you use the combination of the two foreign keys involved in the associative entity as the primary key. Either way is valid. For our project, we are doing it this way. All right, when we get to Microsoft Access, we're probably going to use this way. But for now, this is the best way to use it. I'm done with that. I don't want to talk forever, so that is the end of that video.